The E-Class has always been one of those big hitters for Mercedes, proving popular in the large saloon executive segment and really fighting it out with some key competitors, but always managing to come out on top. Now, the latest E-Class really did just the same, but rather than resting on its laurels, Mercedes has updated it for 2021, bringing an even more technology-focused interior as well as a sharpened exterior look. So how can this already incredible package be refined even further? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at today. The look of the regular E-Class has been sharpened up with a revised front end and a more angular rear end, but this car in particular is an AMG variant, which means it gets a super large grille, badges at the side and more badges at the rear, as well as those telltale quad exhaust pipes. It's a really aggressive looking vehicle, but in all black, this one's a little bit more on the stealthy side. The interior of the E-Class was already pretty fantastic, so what Mercedes has done is just refined it a little bit to make it even more appealing. You've still got this ultra wide screen ahead of you which controls media and navigation in the middle, and up front you've got configurable dials which can be used to show all manner of different features. Now, one of the biggest changes in the revised E-Class is this new steering wheel, which features a kind of split design, and that gives you access to loads of different information via your steering wheel. It's controlled via kind of haptic feedback buttons which feel, well, they're quite natural to use, they're not too bad, and behind them you've got some nicely square paddles, which is a slightly odd design, but it works in this instance. Elsewhere you've got the heating and ventilation controls which still have physical buttons, and that's something we like to see, and down here you have a mouse track style control for the screen itself. You've also got in this car brown leather seats, which is something you don't see very often, but I kind of like it. Again, it's just a really high quality and high-end feeling cabin. Since the E-Class sits on a relatively long wheelbase, you get a lot of space back here. There's plenty of legroom and there's plenty of headroom too. Now, this car in particular has a panoramic sunroof, and that helps to bring extra light into the cabin and brighten things up. Elsewhere, we've got central vents, and we've got controls for heating and ventilation back here too below that. And then underneath, you've got USB sockets for your devices. In the middle, we've got some handy little cup holders too, and you might recognise those as the same ones that you get in the GLB, and we reviewed that recently, and if you'd like to watch that review, then you can click up here. In fairness, even the regular saloon E-Class has a pretty decent boot, but if you want the best possible practicality, then you've got to go for an estate version like this one. With the seats up, you've got 640 litres as standard, and fold them down and that rises to a huge 1,820 litres. It's also nice and square with minimal intrusions from the wheels at the side, so you can get some really big items in here. Also, it's got quite a low lip, so you're not going to have to worry about lugging any larger items up and over into the boot. It's going to be easy and hassle-free. The Mercedes-AMG E53 uses a 3-litre straight-six petrol engine, which features Mercedes' EQ boost technology, and this fills in the gaps in torque and makes for a sharper throttle response by using a 48-volt electrical system. In total, you get 429 brake horsepower and 520 newtons of torque, which is sent to all four wheels through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Now, 0 to 60 miles an hour will take 4.3 seconds, and flat out, it'll do 155 miles an hour. Economy figures aren't too bad. Mercedes claims up to 29.7 mpg combined, while CO2 emissions stand at 216 grams per kilometre. To drive normally, this E53 feels, well, it feels largely like an ordinary E-Class. You can poodle around in it quite happily and it'll do the job just fine. That EQ boost technology is particularly important because it flattens out any of those spots in the torque curve which might usually be taken up with turbo lag. So when you press the accelerator, you get a nice sharp throttle response, and you don't get any discernible lag in between the gear changes or when you really need to request that power quite quickly. And of course, this 3-litre engine does afford the car with plenty of performance, and though it might not be as raucous as the top level 63 models, it makes a pleasant enough noise, and you can even make it a little bit louder with an exhaust button down the bottom. When it comes to the ride, this does stand on the firm side of things. You get adaptive damping, so you can adjust the firmness of the ride, and in its firmer setting, it feels a little bit too sharp, to be honest. Particularly for country roads, yeah, it doesn't provide the kind of sumptuous quality that you want from a car's ride, particularly in a large estate car. So when I'm driving, it's just in comfort the whole time. We are getting quite a good degree of road noise. That'll be because we've got very large alloy wheels on this particular car. So what I would be tempted to do, if that's what you're after, if you want the best quality of refinement inside, then opt for a smaller wheel. There's a nice degree of heft to the steering too. This new steering wheel feels really pleasant to use, and that's coupled with a steering rack which feels a little bit heavier than we're used to from an E-Class Mercedes, and that gives the car a nice solid feeling when you're travelling down the road. The brakes too offer plenty of performance, and they bring the car to a stop in a nice, adequate fashion. This car also uses a 9-speed automatic gearbox, and it's one of Merc's latest gearboxes, but in my mind I feel like 9 gears is just slightly too many. You're never entirely sure which one you're meant to be in. Of course the shifts are nice and smooth, they're very pleasant indeed, but 9 gears? I mean, of course, probably 7th up to 9th are the ones you'll be using on the motorway to cruise along, but I just end up feeling a little bit lost within the gearbox. Of course, another bonus of the E53 is Merc's 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, and that means that even in slippery and wet conditions, you're getting a good degree of traction. Certainly in the dry, there's far more traction than you could ever really want. It'd be really hard-pressed to make this thing unstick. This E53 also makes a very nice, kind of old-school, classical, straight-six noise. So when it's quite pleasant, really. It's not as obnoxious as the one you get from the V8 powered 63, but it's very pleasant indeed. What do you think of it? Leave us a comment below and tell us if you think this is the right kind of noise that you should be getting from an AMG model. The E-Class didn't really need much more help in delivering a premium driving experience, but this new updated model does help to take things one step further. The cabin is slightly more improved, and those sharpened looks do make sure that it's fresh and in keeping with rivals. Of course, this AMG version does bring some extra performance, but even for those who don't fancy an AMG version, would like something a little more wallet friendly, then the petrol and diesel versions will provide more than enough performance on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for watching this motors.co.uk new car review. And if you have enjoyed it, please remember to give us a like below. And don't forget to subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so that you get notified each time we upload a new video.